Patriotism is something that should unify our country, but a troubling new poll shows that we are deeply divided. According to a new poll, 65% of conservatives are proud to be Americans, but just 37% of liberals call themselves proud to be an American. But shouldn't we all, I feel like 65% is even low, be proud to be an American? Let's ask our panel. Political science professor Dr. Janine Zaino, former NYPD lieutenant and Army veteran Dr. Darren Porcher, and personal finance expert Emma Johnson. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
We will put you in a box and say we've got more or less a liberal, a conservative, and a moderate here on the panel. Reject that title if you'd like. But we put titles on people when we ask them in polls, right? So what do you make of the fact that only a small 37% of liberals would say that they're proud to be American?
Well, I think the poll asked if they consider themselves patriots, and I think that you can pick that apart. And this really becomes a debate about semantics. Because when we talk about patriotism, look, I'm a bleeding heart liberal, but I see this country surging with patriotism from the left. We have so much movement when it started with the Women's March, when we started with the resistance, the Me Too, Black Lives Matter. These are all exercises that are big and bold that we've ever had in recent history of the left coming together and exercising democracy and being proud Americans. This is patriotism at its most, the kneeling athletes. And what it is, I think what I see as somebody who considers myself progressive by definition means you're stepping away from the old guard, right? You're stepping away. But there's a big difference between rejecting the administration and loving your country and fighting within democracy for your country.
So, Darren, to that point, she's saying the kneeling NFL is patriotism.
I staunchly disagree. I'm a former Army officer like yourself, Pete. I bleed red, white, and blue. I'm prepared to lay down my life for this country. I believe it's important that we stand behind our commander-in-chief. Rooting against the president is equivalent to getting on an airplane and hoping that the plane crashes. We as Americans need to come together and acquiesce behind the political structure in play so we can progressively do better. When we look at the rises in the stock market, when we look at the precipitous drops in unemployment, it stands true that we're moving in the right direction. So when we take in consideration patriotism, when I look at people kneeling in front of the American flag, that sends a spike through my heart. And I think that it's important that we as Americans need to come together, coalesce behind this United States of America, because it's the greatest nation on earth.
Strong statement. Jean, your take on the idea of what patriotism really represents.
Yeah, I'll resolve the conflict between these two. As the moderate here, Pete. No, I think we have to step back. We have years and years of data. I'm a pollster, 40 years of data on patriotism. America is a patriotic place, but it's not the most patriotic country in the world. That actually goes to Qatar, of all places. But this poll is right. Yeah, shocking, right?
Yeah.
But this poll is right. Since 2003, we've seen a decline in patriotism, particularly among young people, millennials, like Darren and I both teach, but also amongst liberals and progressives. And that is due in part to the fact that the country is now being led by somebody that they are not satisfied with. So that does creep up into the polls. So we have to take into account when you're not satisfied with the country, you tend to say, yes, I love my country, but am I proud to be an American at this moment? Not necessarily.
I would push back and say that patriotism numbers were still high amongst conservatives under Barack Obama. So it's not exclusive to administrations. When you look at this poll, liberals were less likely to attach meaning to the American flag, 30% less, 33% lower to the Pledge of Allegiance, 36 points lower to the national anthem, and 38 points lower to the Bible. So look at the flag and the allegiance and the anthem. Why would liberals look at those symbols, which, as Darren talked about, those of us who raised our right hand to defend the Constitution believe in and defend, why would those be less patriotic or something not to revere?
No, and I understand that very much. We do attach it to our administration, and we also attach it...
Why should we?
Well, I don't...
You made the point that we don't, because the Women's March and all these things...
Well, we do. I'm saying that we do, but I'm saying in terms of our allegiance to our country. I think when these polls come out, as they do periodically, the conservative right jumps on it and says that liberals hate America. Liberals are not patriotic. We don't believe in our country, and I'm arguing that we do. We do reject the administration, and I think a lot of it, when it comes to those symbolic things like the flag, we see that as the global-facing symbol of our country, our foreign policy, which we're ashamed of.
We're ashamed of America's foreign policy.
Certainly most recently. Every day when these headlines come out about our president, I am just
so
can only
North Korea is
see.
about to get nuclear weapons. Yeah, please.
I think our foreign policy is come leaps and bounds from where it was under the Obama administration. We look at what's happening in North Korea. We look at how Trump is reorganizing these trade agreements with countries like China and NAFTA with Mexico. So I think that he's doing a tremendous job in terms of our foreign policy. Just taking consideration him getting, I forget what the gentleman's name was, out of North Korea. These were things that weren't happening. These are things that were not happening under the Obama administration. I think that President Trump has been focused on a level of strength, and we've been getting kicked around for years and years. And it's about time that someone has stepped up and represented this country, and as opposed to isolating us, putting us at the forefront in diplomacy.
Gene, we're out of time. Last word.
I would just say Americans are patriotic, but you're right. Conservatives, Republicans have for a long time been slightly more patriotic or willing to say that they're proud to be an American, liberals and Democrats. But that doesn't mean we're not a patriotic country. 3/4 of Americans say they're proud to be American, but they want changes in the country. Conservatives and liberals alike.
Well, sure. If we all kneeled for the anthem because we thought our country wasn't perfect, we'd all kneel. Because
yeah,
our country is not perfect.
But actions
the reality
speak so much louder than these gestures. I do think that kneeling is important.
During the anthem?
I
think the majority of Americans would like you to stand for the anthem, kneel for something else.
I think the majority of Americans would like us to be. I think the majority of Americans would like to see us. Please let me speak. Please do not let me interrupt me. I think the majority of Americans would like to see us working within the democratic system for things that we believe in, and we are seeing the left rise up and exercise this in unprecedented numbers in the last year alone. And I cannot imagine a more democratic exercise than that.
I think we've seen the right rise up and pass
of the American flag
is
not the place to protest. I fought for this flag as an Army officer. I've bled for this country, and I take it personal. And I take it personal when people kneel in front of the American flag. If you want to protest, do it with your legislators, not in front of the flag nor the anthem.
Well, you've got it coming at both sides. You've got it coming at both sides.
We've got to leave it right there.
To the legislator and the flag.
Well, we all love our flag.